So when you open the program up, once you get logged in, and by the way, your email address is going to be your username for the system, and then you'll create your own password for it. But this is the first page that opens up. It's to personnel. And under personnel, basically, we have 3 tabs at the bottom of the page here. We have organization, we have category, and we have sport, okay? You don't necessarily have to have somebody assigned to a sport for them to exist in organization. If you will, to conceptually look at this, is the organization is the entire Diamond football organization, which is inclusive of all the staff members and all the players, which is our 2 major divisions. We had a very successful, and have still a very successful on-premises program that was used as a template to create this cloud system from. So some of the things that are in this system, if you've ever had exposure to it before, will look very, very familiar to you. Okay, from that standpoint then, let me start with what the organization is. When I go to add somebody to the organization up here, simply basically go here and add the person by clicking this plus sign up here. And then here, for example, and Coach, if you don't mind, I'm going to add you to the organization if that's okay.
Sure.
All right. And Mike, I'm not trying to be single you out, okay, or anything. I just want to let you know, so, okay?
No problem.
All right, perfect. And then so in here, basically, all we ask, and this goes back to related to our on-premises system, the only 3 pieces of information that we need in order to basically check things out to you is a first name, last name, and an ID. So in the ID right here, you can basically use any combination of alphanumeric characters you'd like to enter an ID here. Coach, I'm just gonna, if you don't mind, why don't you give me your give me a phone number to use, okay, or whatever you want me to use in here for an ID.
244.
Yes, sir.
0359.
Perfect. And then, by the way, if you didn't have an ID to assign, this can be like the school ID, you know, or some way to identify individuals, okay, as far as where they are. But you can use just about anything. But if you don't come up with an ID, you can go down here and auto-generate an ID right here, for example, just by pressing this button, and that will go ahead and generate an ID for you automatically, okay, and put it in there. And it's random numbers, so, you know, it just basically gives an ID so that you can proceed from there and at least assign something to somebody. You can always go back and change the ID later on if you decide to, you know what I mean, or you get a student ID and you didn't have it at the time. Globally active means basically if you had multiple sports, for example, okay, that anything that you put as far as this individual is concerned can be globally active. He can be associated with multiple sports. So if you have multiple sport athletes, I know you're only using this for football now, but if you have multiple sport athletes, okay, you can simply basically make sure that he's globally active. At that point there, you can easily add him to other sports from that standpoint, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and add you in here, Coach, okay, at this point, and you have been added. Now, the next thing that happens is not automatic, because now that you're in here, for example, okay, and I'll go down here, and by the way, you can sort on these columns to basically put this in whatever order you need to, and you can see right here, it goes in alphabetical order. But let's say, for example, I don't want to do search through all those pages. We have this search function up here, you'll see at the top left-hand corner right here, okay? And in here, I can basically put your first name in there, Coach, okay? And I can hit enter. And anybody with the name Jeff will pop up here, and voila, there you are, okay, right here. And right now, I don't have you associated necessarily with a particular sport, okay, at this point. And also, too, you need a category. Those two, you'll notice when I added you, were not included as part of that, okay? So what the category is all about, for example, okay, obviously the sport is self-explanatory, but if the category is within the sport itself, you can basically go to the categories, for example, and I'll show you here. These are the different categories we have. You can basically separate individuals, you know what I mean, for example, by offense or defense, okay? You know, whatever team 1, team 2, whatever you want to separate them by, you can basically put that associate them with that category, okay? And then obviously the sport, like I said, is exactly what it is. Here's a roster, for example, of the people in the sport. So I'll go back to organization here, Coach, and show you how basically, if you would, to add yourself, okay, to a sport at this point. So right here, I'm going to basically hit this right here, and this person is not currently assigned to a sport. You can always look here to see what sports people are assigned to. In your case, it's going to be 1. So assign select is, this is where you go to assign the person to a selected sport right here.
Okay.
Oh, and I'm sorry, you have to select at least 1 person there, which I'm going to put in here. And of course, I'm going to put you in the sport of football demo because that's where we have the bunch of populated players and stuff into, okay? And then for the category, I'm just going to put you in coaches category here, okay? And then once I've done that, now I have the choices also too to assign you. If you're not a staff member, you're obviously a player, so I'm going to assign you to a staff, okay? And if you're active, basically you have to have this box checked. Now what I mean by active is if you decide, you know, when players leave that your system that you don't want to basically delete them, you can basically archive them by simply unchecking this box right here, and then they'll be archived. You can do that multiple, by the way, with all your seniors at the end of the season if you'd like to. Also, too, for eligibility, if, for example, if they're not eligible due to whatever you want to mean, the paperwork not being turned down, grade point average, whatever it is, okay, you can basically uncheck that box. And then when you uncheck it, you're not supposed to be able to issue equipment to that player, okay? The taxable one, that's there for mostly the college ranks, okay? And obviously does not apply, you know what I mean, in this particular case. So I'm going to go ahead, assign you to football demo here, okay, Coach? And I'm going to assign, and there you see now you are in football demo. I can confirm that if you will, because if I go over here to the sport of football now, and again, go up here and type your name in to do a search, then, okay. Why did you get assigned to football? Let's go back and see what's wrong here, okay? Sport currently assigned to. And it says you're supposedly in football demo. And I'm in football demo, so let me go back here at this point. Oh, I know why. It's not doing that because I'm looking in player, not staff, okay? So I'll go back again, try that again, Coach, sorry. And I'll go Jeff, and I'll say, okay, and there you go. You're in coaches, okay? So you can see over here, by the way, the only thing that can be confusing is, like I said, we have the two major categories of player and staff. And so as long as you're on player and you're looking for somebody, they're not going to pop up. But if they're in staff, sure enough, they'll be there, okay? So now you can see that you're in here at this point. At this point here, do you folks have any questions of me?
The only question I had had to do with the global versus non-global. So that's not going to matter whether that's selected or not. We'll still be able to find people, right? Because the global
absolutely
means that they're multiple sports and they can find them.
Exactly,
okay.
Exactly, Coach. Okay, all right. So that's the only difference. And thank you for asking that question too. Okay. So you can also see here, by the way, besides the players and staff button that you can also filter by categories. So for example, if I go up here and I say special teams, and I want to see basically everybody's on a special team, I can sort by that by basically, and in this case here, I'm going to put coaches here, okay? And everybody that's a coach or special teams now will be on the grid here. It can reduce the size of your grid at this point if you want to, especially with players and stuff like that. If you want to reduce the size of grid by offense, defense, or special teams, you can certainly do that at that point there, okay? By categories. Also, too, besides the players and staff, we also have active and archived, okay? At this point here, you can see basically what happens if you archive somebody. That gets back to that active one I was showing you. And then eligible or ineligible, you can click to do that and sort by that also. You can mass edit by personnel. For example, I'm going to go back to the first players page here, for example, where I have multiple people in here. And at this point here, I'm not going to basically do this. I'm going to show all categories. And you can see here when I bring up all the players, okay, I forgot to get rid of this search function up here. But anyway, you can see here where I bring up all the players right here. here's all the different categories. This is probably a better example of exactly what I was talking about, but you can basically sort on your offense or defense if you want to, if you assign them separate categories in here. But in order to do a mass edit of personnel, for example, if I want to go in here and I want to basically take these individuals right here and do a mass edit on them, when I do this, what happens is it comes up and I can go in here, and this is where I can basically change any information I want, size information, whatever fields I want to change here. You can see all the fields that are available, all the sizes if I want, or just standard info. For example, if I want to change the category on a group of players to switch them, I can certainly do that here by basically just switching the category. And then basically I switch the category and then go through and basically select all the players. And I've already selected them as to what I want to do with them, do the mass edit, and at this point here, assign the category if that's what I've done, and basically give them the category and then finish that at that point. So you don't have to basically operate on one-on-one like you saw me do originally there, Coach. Okay, you can do that with multiple players at a time. So like I was saying, getting back to the thing I was talking about, if all your seniors have graduated, at this point here I want to archive them, I can simply do the mass edit personnel, uncheck them as far as being active, okay, and at that point they will all be archived away. Download a bar board, and what this is about here, even if you assign the IDs to the players randomly, you know what I mean, or basically use school IDs or do like, you know, the auto-generate IDs, basically if you sort them here at the top by the ID number, what this download bar board is, it will take all of these right here, all of these names right here, and I'm just going to use first name and last name, okay, and it'll basically create a bar board. So what the bar board looks like essentially is it takes all of that information from these players right here and converts those into players point at which you want to basically start checking things out to them, okay? So that's exactly what that does. Let me see, here we go.
And how did you get to that? I was writing something down, so I didn't see how you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Coach. Yeah, no, I'll get back to that. I'm sorry. The way I got to that right here was I was on this screen right here, and I said download bar board.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And when I did that, what it does is it converts it to a PDF file for you, okay? Once you give it the options right here, and basically converts that to a PDF file, and you can print this out at that point. And I organized it by ID here, so that's why everything is in organization by this, okay? But you could do it by last name, you could do it by first name, whatever order you want to set it to, that's what it'll sort by, and that's what it'll print them by. So that being said, okay, at this point here, the only thing report-wise, basically all of our reports usually come out of Excel. So for example, if I wanted to take this one right here, download this grid to Excel at this point, I can do that here. And you can see here in Excel what happens with it. Now, if you want to go in and edit, you know, for the team and something and edit for them and stuff, you can simply just generate this Excel file by basically download grid to Excel, and then you can go in there and do whatever edits you need to it at this point here for report functionality, I mean. So there you go right there. See, there's your report, okay, that you want, and it came right off the grid. And again, the t-shirt size and shirt size were selected. That's why they're in this list right here, okay? So anything that you want to add to this grid, basically check the boxes and tell it that's what you want to see on the grid, and I'll get to that here next, okay? So at this point here, I can go here, and if I want to basically change what's on the grid here, I can do it simply by doing this right here. These are the columns not shown, columns shown right here. And by the way, you can change the order of these anytime you want to, just by basically sorting things around here, okay? But let's just say, for example, in this case here, I want to basically add something else like their year of graduation, okay? I can add that here, and if I click on the double arrows, then it goes. And you can see now, if I hit save on this, that now becomes part of the grid right here that you can look at. and again, sort by it if it's in there. Any questions about that?
I think I'm good.
Okay, great. Then at this point here, printing labels, I know that at this point here, you know, we've sent you pre-printed your own labels too from the barcode printer that we're sending you also too, or that we're not sending it now, but you can order, I'm sorry. And then a size breakdown basically where you can take, and this will tell you off of the sport exactly how many people wear a particular size. In this case here, let's say, for example, helmet manufacturer. I want to see how many people wear this. Rydell has 25 people in it. If there was other helmets in here, then it would have those and the quantity of those also in here. And you can see exactly who it is that wears those particular helmets if you want to for the size breakdown. So that's just a way of basically generating, if you will, a report coach that you can have that shows you what each individual one plays, okay? So, and by the way, this one here, it's in red because if you remove a person from a sport, like I was talking about previously, if you want to archive somebody, then go ahead and archive them. It'll preserve everything, the checkout, check-in records and everything. But if you do this one here, you will lose all that information right there, you know, as far as the person from the sport. But that's how to get somebody completely out of the sport if you want to do that, okay? So at that point there, at this point, I'm at a good stopping point, okay? This point here would be assigned to different sports. We don't have to do that. And this always refreshes your table here if you want, okay? So at this point here, unless there's any questions, the only other thing I was going to tell you about is that if you have an administrative system coach at the school or an online registration system, whatever you're using to basically do this, we have the import functionality. Instead of entering players manually like I did with you, Coach, to begin with here, okay? We also have this import function where we can basically take it, if it's a CSV or an XLS file, something that's generated into Excel, we can take that file and basically import this. So that being said, what are you presently using to basically keep track of your players with now?
Well, I think we're using multiple setups because we have, you know, them registering, and then we've got it going to certain coaches who have information on them there. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm just using a standard Excel file
Perfect.
to put in their name, their whatever they're signing out and stuff.
Well, perfect. In fact, this coach, if you want to email that, the email I'm going to send you about how to set up accounts that we're going to go to at the end of this presentation, okay? If you want to send that Excel spreadsheet to me, okay? And if you want to at the time, we can go through and I can kind of explain to you how the import function works, okay? So you can import that Excel spreadsheet into here. Save you a lot of typing that way, okay? To put personnel in here and how to get them into the system and what the different things are that you can assign them to and stuff. So that being said, let me move on to the next step, okay, if you will, and that is serialized inventory, which is very, very important to you from this standpoint, okay? So what we do basically is we have in the serialized equipment category right here, and by the way, the serialized equipment is the equipment that has a unique ID assigned to it, okay? The barcode labels that we've sent you, basically those labels are all unique. There's no other label in the world with that particular serial number on it that I'm aware of, okay? So once you put that on a piece of equipment, that is the only equipment that will have that serial number in your system. And even across, you know what I mean, if it went for reconditioning, it would be the only one that has that serial number on it. So that being said, at this point, okay, that's the number that you'll use to basically identify that piece of equipment in the system. And by the way, one of the things that's good about that is the fact that basically you can use this when you do this and assign it to somebody. Think of it in terms of you're not really assigning the helmet to somebody, you're actually assigning somebody to the helmet. And the reason I say that is because your serialized inventory stays in your inventory. Student athletes may come and go, but your inventory is your inventory, and it stays that way. We also have expendable items that you can put things into here. And expendable items or non-expendable, they all fall into the same category of expendable here. But these are items basically if you use one ID to basically delineate a group of basically items or a collection of items. This is the experience you're most likely to have experienced as far as barcode technology is concerned. When you go to the store at a retail outlet, for example, okay, there's one barcode that's attached to all of the items, and all the items on the shelf that are exactly like that. They have the same substance kind unit, the SKU, basically all have the same barcode label on it. That's exactly what an expendable or non-expendable item is, and obviously by expendable or non-expendable, self-explanatory as to what they are. Expendable, I give those out. I call those the jocks and socks category, for example, because once I hand those out, even if they want to give them back to me, I really don't want them, okay? But at the end of the day, that's what basically would fall into that. Non-expendable might be something that you hand out for a game. Let's say, for example, foul weather gear, for example, a rain, snow, whatever. If you hand that gear out, but of course you want that back at the end of the day, or at the end of the game, or at the end of the season, that would be an example of a non-expendable item, okay? Now, the big difference between the two, serialized and expendable / non-expendables, is that basically if I find something on the locker room floor, an item, okay, and I pick it up, if it's serialized, I can simply, take out my cell phone or whatever and scan the item by going to basically the express button here and saying, whose is it? At this point here, and that's the first one here, whose is it, and scan the barcode on it, and it'll tell me exactly what the item is, and more importantly, who it belongs to. So if it's a non-expendable, expendable item, though, unfortunately, I can basically scan it, but at the end of the day, it won't tell me exactly who it belongs to. I may have to go to everybody's checkout records and look to see who I gave it to, and then by process of elimination, figure it out, but that's the only way to figure that out. Serialized items, like I said, are easily identifiable. And why that becomes important is at the end of the season, for example, if somebody grabs my helmet and decides to turn it back into you, coach, okay, to satisfy the fact that I've given you a helmet, that's not going to work, because when you finally scan it, you're going to say, listen, thanks for turning in Les's helmet. Now, if you'll just find yours, okay, I won't have to write you a bill for the helmet, okay? So that's essentially why serialized is so important, and that's exactly what I started off with when I started with the system years and years ago, was that. It basically, if you will, from the standpoint of the student athletes, okay, it makes them more responsible, at that point there, and so now you'll know exactly what the stuff is. So that's basically what the difference is between serialized, expendable, and non-expendable items. Now, in order to get those in the system, unfortunately, I have no way to be able to import those like I was showing you on the players coach, you know what I mean? And you're probably not going to use expendable items, but you could. For example, I don't know if do you supply mouthpieces to the players coach?
We do. We keep them kind of more for a, as needed situation. It's not really like a requirement that we need to give them mouthpieces, but they need to have their own. And if they forget them, then we have some extras for them.
Perfect. Good. That's exactly what it's in the system that I coach in too. So here, for example, under expendable, you can put those items in there and they would be expendable. At least at that point there, you can monitor your inventory and see what you got left in that inventory, coach. And then every time you check that out to a student or athlete, okay, it puts a time and date stamp on it so you can see exactly when they were given out also too at the end of the day. So that's an example. In fact, that's one of those things, coach, you don't want that back after you hand it to them, do you?
Yeah. No.
Exactly. So that would be exactly. So that would be a perfect example of an expendable item, okay? So before I jump into how to add things, like I said, under serialized, unfortunately, I have no way of being able to import those. Some schools and some organizations that we work with basically have So unfortunately, serialized items, they have to be placed in the system one at a time, okay? So when you do that, Coach, basically that's the way that's going to happen. So the way to basically put in a single item in the system right here, okay? The way you do that is essentially, by the way, and I have different categories, and by adding if you don't see something here that you want, you can always add a category, an item category to it. And so on your system, in fact, we can cover that real briefly, if you want. But basically, if I say here, what color are your helmets, Coach?
Yellow. Gold.
Yellow. Okay.
Yep.
Gold. Okay. So I can go gold here, for example, and say helmets. And at this point here, basically, I'll hit the tracking options, okay? And this tracking option is important at this point for serialized items, okay? Because you can select one of these boxes here, like the manufacturer, obviously the model, and the size and the color of the helmet's important to you, just in case down the road you decide you want to change colors on helmets, okay? Well, you get this one time right now to be able to do this. So at this point here, whatever options you pick here for that particular category name, okay, then basically that's going to be the way it is. So in other words, once I've done this, for example, and added these like this, if later on down the road I go, I really didn't really want the model, I wanted style or something, you can't change the items. You can create the category, but you won't be able to change the items that you've already assigned to this one to that one if it's missing one of these 4 items right here. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, and then besides the tracking options here, we also have 3 other options you can put in here if you would like on the particular helmets also too. And then we also monitor the reconditioning, if you will. You can put the reconditioning interval in here as to how often you want to recondition a helmet. Do you do them every season, Coach?
We don't do all the helmets every season.
Okay.
We do. We usually do send out quite a few per year that need to be received.
Okay, all right. Well, if you wanted to do it on some periodic basis right here, Coach, you can select, as you can see on my screen here, 1, 2, 3 years, all the way up to 10 years, because after that point there, you couldn't get it reconditioned if you wanted to anyway, by members of NEAR, I should put. And then basically scrapping, how long you want to keep in your inventory, you can basically prescribe that based on the interval too, as to how long. I know a lot of schools, for example, I believe some of the helmets have a 5-year warranty, and so after 5 years, they don't want them in their inventory anymore. So they'll scrap them at, like, say, the 6th year, for example, okay? And also, too, that flag will pop up when you go to check in the helmet or check out the helmet. It'll pop up and tell you OAA. It stands for exactly what the pop-up says. Okay, add another. So, for example, if I wanted to add several categories in here, I could do this, or excuse me, items in here. I can do this. At that point there, if I press the button, it's going to give me the option to go ahead and add a new category item. So once you've added the category items at that point, now you're ready to start scanning the helmets in. So at this point here, I want to add a new item here. And by the way, this is great from the standpoint of when you go to do this part of it, okay? When you go to add these items right here, Coach, basically, you can basically do multiple items at a time. And I'll show you how to do that here. So first thing you want to do is say, I want to add the helmets I'm going to be adding. In this point here, we're just going to use a Rydell, okay? And how about a Revolution, okay, for example, okay? And we don't, and you're yellow, not green, so we'll go ahead and add another color in here, like that, and we'll add that. And now I'll select yellow, and then now we can basically, the item's been added, so we're going to close, okay? So, I didn't finish, and I apologize. I selected the items, but I did not say close. So it's a Revo, and we're going to do it in yellow, okay? And now I'm going to hit finish here. And now at this point here is when I'm ready to start scanning the barcodes, Coach. Now I just happen to have a barcode scanner sitting here on my desk, so I'm going to go ahead and scan a serial number here, for example, on a helmet, okay? And this is basically how it would basically go if I have all of the helmets in this particular, size of helmet and stuff like that. If I have the size selected, then basically it's going to go through and let me start scanning all those helmets. So to streamline the process, Coach, of getting your helmets and shoulder pads in here, if you don't have them organized right now by basically manufacturer, model, and sizes, if you put them in those orders, okay, and try to group them like that, when you go to start putting the inventory in there, it'll go much quicker because, like I said, if you're on a particular size here, and this point here, I didn't have size on this particular helmet that I'm adding, but I would basically start scanning all of the labels around those helmets. So moral of the story is start putting the labels on them first. And so at this point here, I'm going to ask you, do you have any questions about where the labels go in your helmets?
I was going to ask probably the best spot to have them to keep them, keep them active for as long as possible. So I imagine we don't want to have them right on the outside where they're going to get destroyed by people running into stuff and all that. But
you're absolutely correct, sir. You're absolutely correct. Basically, they've run out of real estate on the shell itself. I really strongly urge you to basically put it on the shell, but find a spot. I know on the latest versions of the helmets I've seen, the jaw pads, basically they're kind of hinged, okay, and they have a Velcro pad on one side. If you lift the jaw pad up, there is a place there where you can basically stick one of the barcode labels on it, and that might be a good spot to put it on, Coach. But by the model of helmet, you'll figure it out, I'm sure. You know what I mean? I just urge you basically put it in the same spot, so you'll know exactly where to find it when you go to scan it each time, okay? So that being said, I have down here, and this was not part of what you saw me select earlier, I have the year of manufacture. So if you want to organize those helmets by the years of manufacture, you can do that. And then the cost, of course. Now, if there's anything else you want to know about the helmets, Coach, we have a note field here that you can put on them to go to add those, okay? So basically, and again, like I was saying, when they go into the system, they also have a time and a date when they were added to the system, added to their history, okay? So at that point there, let's say these two helmets right here have now been added to the system, okay? So I'll close this, and then now if I go up here, for example, and I can again search on serial numbers if I want, that feature's in there. If I click on that, and what did I do wrong? I know what I did. I didn't add those helmets. I apologize. Let's go one more time through this. I'm getting good exercise here, Coach, on this. And so here I'm going to add this one, and I'm going to add the other one that I started to add before. And of course, I'm going to say the year is 2020. And Coach, what's a good price for a helmet? 300?
Sure.
Okay. Anyway, I'll put the no notes field there, okay? And now hit add. And now at this point, those two items have been, and it tells me down here, basically there's the results that were added, okay? And now I'll hit close. Now at this point, there you go. It still preserved that, but that's the helmet with that ID on it, okay? So this is how I can find serialized items in the system, okay? If I just again, scanning the ID, and if I've checked out to somebody, I can do that also. And let's just say, for example, I'm just going to show you, this is how we add serialized items. Do you have any questions on that at this point, Coach?
I don't think so.
Okay, good. At this point here, then I'm going to go to expendable, for example, and I'm just going to, let's just say the mouthpieces, okay? And I'm going to go to a different item category as soon as it loads. Note to less, in the future, don't use an item category that's so huge, right? Actually, Coach, I'm going to go back to serialized here for a second. Actually, there's obviously some traffic either on my end as far as the internet's concerned, or on the system at the other end. Hopefully you will not encounter this ever. Coach, I tell you what, I'm going to exit. I'm going to go back into the program here. I don't want to hang you guys up with any technical difficulties I might be having, okay? And there we go. Okay. So under expendable, and like I said, I want to try changing this now one more time to a different category. And Coach, by the way, everything at the bottom of your screen right here, where you see these things in red right here, this kind of warning you, letting you know that, for example, if you do this, you know what I mean, it may have some catastrophic, in other words, you may lose the information, okay? And it'll warn you when you try to press one of these to do this, okay?
Okay.
At this point here, I'm not certain what we got going on here. There we go, okay? So I'm going to change it to, say, shoes, for example, here, okay? Okay, then I'm going to add a new item category here, and this is the way you do this, okay? Did you see what I went to, by the way? Add new item category over here on the right-hand side. I click on that, for example, I'm going to say mouthpieces, okay? That, and also too, if you have different models of mouthpieces, you can certainly put that in there as an item. And then also here we get to the same thing. It's obviously an expendable item, and if it wasn't, that's where I would check this box here and make it non-expendable, okay? And the taxable stuff, I'm not going to cover that, okay? So at this point here, I'm going to add, and now when I go to my list here, here's my mouthpieces category. So now let's say, for example, I want to, if the mouthpiece comes in a bag, and it usually does with the manufacturer, okay, I'm just going to call it Acme, and then the model is going to be the Super, and the color is yellow, your school colors, okay? And then I'll add that. So now hit Acme, Super, and all the ones that are like this one here, I want to have finished. And now is where I go in and scan the barcode for it right there. And there you go. I can also auto-generate. So if it's an item that doesn't have a barcode associated with it, Coach, you can auto-generate an ID for that item right there. And remember the bar board I was showing you for the players? You can also create that same bar board for your expendable, non-expendable categories. And I'm just going to say it's $10 for there. And let's say the quantity I'm adding is 100 of them, okay? And I can put the sizes in here. So I'm just going to go with the large right here. If I have any other notes to put on it, I can put that in there. And then now I'll do an add. And now these have been successfully added to my mouthpiece inventory here, okay?
Okay, and so that'll just be one ID for multiple.
Yep,
multiple
for
items.
100 of these mouthpieces. Exactly. As long as they're an Acme Super in size large, Coach, in yellow, they'll all have the same ID, okay?
So basically we could just do a bar board with the expendable equipment, and so as the coaches issue out the mouthpieces, they can just scan that bar board for the mouthpiece.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And when I get
like
to the
that.
next step here, Mike, okay, By the way, I'm glad you brought that up, because when I get to the next stage here, for example, when I'm going to basically switch the coach over to a player and check out a helmet and shoulder pad and a mouthpiece to him, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about from the standpoint of, you can see over here on the right-hand side, this is my quantity on hand that I'm starting with right here that you saw me put in. But as I check those out, I'll have these currently checked out here, okay? And then so my on-hand quantity will be this number by subtracting this number from it right here. So you can also monitor your inventory of all those items also.
With the bar board setup,
yes, sir.
Can we create a bar board for like all of our expendable items as far as,
yeah.
if I go in there and I start adding a bunch of stuff and I want to have it on hand at the games or whatnot, then I can have one bar board on hand and I can scan stuff off. Okay.
Absolutely, Coach. In fact, if you don't, and I'll show you that when I go to the checkout page, if you don't have the bar board handy, I'll show you how to do that also too when we get to that step, okay? But basically, all the bar boards are by basically categories here. So for example, in this category here, I'm going to download the bar board that we just got done creating here, okay? And we want the manufacturer, we want the barcode itself on it, okay? And we want maybe this right here, and then basically the size on it right there, okay? And I'll put that in there. And so I'll download that, and at this point here, you'll be able to see there, in fact, it has generated, taken this ID right here and transformed that into a barcode so you can scan that. To getting back to exactly what you were talking about, Coach, okay? So yes, you could take those out on the games with you if you'd like, okay?
So I can essentially almost have like as like in like a category, I could almost have like just an expendable items category and say put knee pads, mouthpieces, like all those things on there. And then I'll have that one. Gotcha. Okay.
Yes, sir. Absolutely correct. Exactly. Okay. So, and we have a lot of teams that do that and drill down that far and stuff like that. Okay. If you want to do that, I mean, the only thing caveat basically, if you will, Coach, if it's an expendable or non-expendable item, I can't tell you exactly who it was given to. I can tell you who the group of individuals were that it was given to, but I can't give you on an individual item exactly who that particular item belonged to, unless you serialized it. Okay.
Gotcha.
So, is there any question on that? We also have, again, like I was talking about before, we have the mass edit on items, okay, or item values, okay. We also have a group checkout. So at the end of at the beginning of the season, I mean, Coach, or even during the season, if you guys make it to state playoffs, for example, and everybody's going to get a T-shirt, you can basically do a group checkout, and that way it gives you the capability of creating the group of items that you want to check out to them from your expendable and non-expendable items, okay, as well as the players or staff that you're going to give it to, and with one button you click it, and it goes ahead and checks that out. It will also look in there and see if it's something that's done by sizes, like I was using an example of T-shirts. It can actually go in there and look at it, and by whatever, if you've assigned T-shirt size to all the individuals that you want to do the group, or mass checkout, I mean a bunch of items at one time. This is particularly useful for some programs, for example, at the beginning of the season, when they give out 2 towels, 2 pairs of shorts, 2 T-shirts, pairs of socks and stuff. They can do the group checkout all at one time like that. And then whenever the student athletes appear or show up, they can just hand them the bags, or they can just go ahead and put them in their lockers if they've assigned them lockers. But that's one way to do the group checkout to avoid having to do the one-on-one checkout like I'm getting ready to show you here in just a minute, okay? Again, I can do the same thing here, Coach, that I talked about before, where I can take basically, if you will, I can take all of the items right here, and if I want to create a report right here, I can simply go to download the grid to Excel like I was showing you previously, and basically take that report, edit it there if I want to. But you can see here basically, you know what I mean, what's happened as far as that stuff's concerned. The catalog configuration, It won't necessarily apply to you, but we have customers, like I was saying before, that do the import function I was talking about, where you can import all of the items off of your order form, and then you do the catalog configuration by sport, tell it where the catalog is, where you want to look at it. Or you can basically, they can basically put the stuff in by sport and then only have the inventory confined to that sport. And in which case, this right here tells them, I don't need that catalog configuration. Now I'm going to be looking within my sport for the inventory, like you'll be doing, okay? For all your serialized, expendable, non-expendable items, okay? So, are there any questions on any of that so far?
Nope.
No? Mike, you okay with this, then?
I'm good so far.
Perfect. Okay. Well, at this point here, I'm going to go to the next step, and that is, how do we check this stuff out to an individual, correct? So, again, if you have no questions, if you have any questions, stop and let me know, okay, at this point right here. But I'm going to go back up here to my personnel, okay, on the football demo. And, Coach, I know I had you over here in staff, okay? So what I'm going to do basically is transform you into a player so I can check out equipment to you, because obviously as a coach, you don't need helmet shoulder pads, right? Or a mouthpiece, correct? Hopefully not, right?
I sure hope so.
So that's right, exactly. So what I'm going to do over here, I basically, and anywhere I want to bring up what I originally put in here for you, Coach, okay? I'll basically click on this pencil right here. And then right here, there's your first name, there's all that stuff. I'm going to basically uncheck this box here for staff, okay? And at this point here, did you play offense or defense when you played football, Coach?
Offense.
There you go. I'm going to put you on offense then, okay? And then I'll basically do the edit here. And now that I've done that, you see how you disappeared off of the coach's screen here. But over here, of course, now I've mixed you in with a whole bunch of other people, but I want to check stuff out for you. A couple of ways I can do this. Number one way I can do this, basically, if you will, is if I have that bar board, Coach, that I basically said that you could print out for the players, I can just scan yours, and it will bring me that. Otherwise, in here, I'm just going to basically put your name in here and search for you this way, and there you are. So at this point here, when I'm going to check out inventory, I'm going to use this tag right here next to the player to check him out, check it out to you, okay? So when I check out, click on this button here. Did you guys catch that, by the way? Or do you want me to go back?
I got it.
Okay, good. Well, so this would be the page that you'd be presented with if you scan the bar board with your ID on it, Coach, right here, okay? And your inventory is going to be the same as selected inventory, but if we have schools that have different inventories, I can actually check something. For example, the athletic director, he can go to football, and I can check something out from football. He'd go over to baseball and check something out from baseball to him, okay? But that's what that's all about right there. At this point, it doesn't apply, but I'll just basically point that out to you. Now, at this point here, I'm going to scan the barcode on the item, basically, that I want to check out to you. Okay, so I'm going to do the first one here. And there, in fact, is the helmet that you saw me add to the system, okay, with this ID on over here, Coach, okay? And I can basically do that, as well as if I also, too, let's just say, for example, I accidentally, okay, oh, and I thought I added that to the inventory, but obviously not. Let me scan, for example, the mouthpiece, okay? Oh, I'm sorry. First of all, I have to submit the item. I'm going to submit the transaction, okay, which basically down here. And when I'm on the transaction itself, Coach, when I go to basically scan this right here, if that's not what I want to scan or check out, okay, I can go to here to the trash can and basically delete that transaction, okay? But in this point here, I want to give you that mouthpiece, okay? And remember, we were talking about the fact that you're on the sideline, let's say, for example, and let's say, and you don't have the bar board handy. See this little magnifying glass right here on this line right here?
Yeah.
I can go to click on this right here. It'll take me over to basically the categories. And let's say I can select the item I want to give out. Mouthpieces right here, Coach, okay? And then there you go. I can basically say, this is the item I want to check out right here. And then down here at the very bottom of my screen where it says add selected items, I'll basically do that. And voila, there is basically the mouthpiece that I want to check out to you without having to use a barcode or the bar board to basically put it in there, okay?
Awesome.
And if I want to give you more and if I want to give you more than one mouthpiece, Coach, I can just hit the plus sign here, and it changes my quantities, okay, if I want to. But at this point here, again, I'll submit transaction, and there you go. Now the transaction, you've got a helmet and you've got a mouthpiece, okay? Now, once you've done this, and also to see the history on the items, okay, they're again separated just like you saw the buttons on the left-hand side of your screen. There's the expendable button, or expendable, and that will basically bring up this item right here. And again, you can see exactly what basically has gone to, you know what I mean? You can see the date and time stamp on it when it's been checked out. Over here on the serialized, same thing over here. There's when it's checked out right there, the date, the time stamp on that also. But there's the helmet. So all of the inventory that you have checked out to you, Coach, will be here on this page right here, okay?
Got it.
And if I want to look at the history of all the items, again, you can bring this up. All the items I've checked out to you will appear on this history right here, and you can print this out at this point, okay? So that's how you'll basically generate the Excel spreadsheet. Occasionally, you'll get a student athlete who'll say, I don't remember you giving me this, okay? And Coach, that's where you can go up here, for example, and view the history and say, well, let's see. You know, at this date and time, this is when I gave you that mouthpiece, okay? Any questions on that, gentlemen?
Nope.
Okay, and of course, you know, like I said, during this transaction piece right here, you can do a receipt on the transactions if you'd like to too, and save that to Excel or PDF at this point here. But you can also get this out to them too. If you need something that requires a signature on it, that's one way to do it. Okay, when you're doing the process. So at that point there, then at this point, Coach, I think I've done the checkout. I think we've accomplished everything. I showed you how to add personnel to the system, or to your database, I'm sorry. I showed you how to add both serialized and expendable items to the database when you need to do that. Then I've also showed you the processes you go through to check stuff out. You can either do it one-on-one like you just saw me do this last step with yourself, or I can do it basically with a mass edit, you know what I mean, or excuse me, or basically a group checkout at that point there, okay? This button here on expendable items. Now, are there any questions up to this point here so far?
Not for me.
Beautiful. Well, at this point here, I'm going to go back to Express and just show you here. At the end of the season, Coach, you know what I mean? I know now you probably have something that on your Excel spreadsheet, whether you check off when student athletes basically return their helmets and shoulder pads to you, correct? So, okay, so once you basically serialized all those items and put them into the system, we have a number of youth groups. Remember I was telling you before too, by the way, Coach, if I found a helmet, you left your helmet laying on the locker room floor here, I'll go up to here. And I'll scan that, and basically you can see right here, that's exactly what the item is. There it's the serial number, and there's the person it's checked out to. If it wasn't checked out to somebody, Coach, it would say available here, okay? But that's what the Who's Is a button's all about, okay? This one's very near and dear to my heart, okay? And then at the end of the season, we have a number of youth groups, and what they do is I tell them, because these items are all serialized now, you can just basically have the players put them over in the one pile, okay, for helmets, one pile over here for shoulder pads, and then when they get all done, then basically you can go in here and you can say check in from player, and then scan them each one at a time. So for example, if I wanted to, I can scan your helmet right here and all the helmets at that point there, and it will check them all in from the players. Now, if all the players, all the helmets that were used that season in play, Coach, if I want to send those out to recondition, I can do it all in one step. Instead of sending it to reconditioning, which I have two options here, I can send it to recondition and maintain the checkout status. That way, if I want to make sure that the same student athlete gets the same helmet when it comes back from recon, I can do that. Or I can say here, send it to reconditioning and check it in from the player if it's checked out. So for example, with your helmet right here, I'm going to go ahead and scan it here. And there you go. That item now has been successfully out for reconditioning, okay, at this point here. And so essentially it's been checked in from you, and now it's out for reconditioning, okay? So if I go back up here up to the coach to this one here and I scan that helmet again, I find it laying around. There you can see it has no current owner on it, okay?
Got it.
Now, when they all come back from recon, coach, okay, and the nice little plastic bags in the boxes, you can, you know, your labels should be on them, and you can basically just go to this step here under the express actions and from reconditioning and just start scanning them as you pull them out of the box.
Okay.
Okay. And then down here, we haven't added to the list yet. I've got a vice president over Idell that keeps urging me to make a trophy helmet out of it, okay? So, but in any case, anyway, that's a list of other items that you can do under express actions at this point, okay? So that being said, at this point here, I just want to go to reporting and touch on that here. For example, if you want a report on an individual, like I showed you up there when I was doing on the checkout page for you, I can do that at that point in time. But if I want an inventory, if I want one that shows me all of the items that are basically right now checked out to a team and the season's over with, I want to find out who's still got it right here. I can do that, basically a report on that, and it'll give me all of the items right there that are in that report to show me who's got what, if you will, at this point here, okay? So if I generate this report here, for example, you can see it's going to be pretty hefty, but there it is right there. And so there's all the stuff that's been checked out. So if you want to see by player, you know what I mean, what's still checked out to them or who hasn't returned your equipment, you can basically do this report right here and you'll have something to look at to basically identify who it is that you need to talk to get your equipment back. So that being said, I think I basically have covered everything at this point here I can think of. Coach, Mike, do you have any questions?
So the only question I have is that so I'm going to input a piece of equipment, right? Like say a Rydell Speedflex helmet size medium.
Yes, sir.
Do I need to put in, since that's going to be serialized, do I need to put in a,
yes.
Can I, if I have like 17 mediums, I get all the serial numbers and then can I just scan each or like all the serial numbers into that one piece of equipment, or am I going to have to
yes, sir.
create?
Yes, sir. So in other words, once you've gone and set up the category to begin with, okay, helmets, for example, okay, and you're going to have the model, and you're going to have the manufacturer. I mean, you mentioned Rydell. The model of the helmet is Speedflex, okay? The size of the helmet is going to be there also, too. It wasn't in that helmet that I checked because that wasn't in there. I've actually added that to another helmet category. And then basically the cost of the helmet, excuse me. Let me go back here for a second. Let's go back to serialize here and just cover this. So, for example, I'm going to say right here, I want to add a new category into serialized here. And let's just go, I want to go to, how about the speed helmets, okay? Like this. I'm just doing this just for the sake of example, coach, okay? So I'm going to create that, the model, it's Rydell, the manufacturer, the Speedflex, the size, and then you can have the color there. You don't necessarily have it, that's not, and any one of these option fields that you want to have, then I'll add that. And now when it brings me to this page, whoops, I did not do that right. Let's try again. Okay, speed, spell helmets, okay. It's not adding them because it did add them. I apologize. There we go. Speed helmets right here, coach. Okay. So now at this point here, I've got all those mediums, all 17 of them lined up. I'll click on the plus sign right here. and I'll add a manufacturer, okay? And I'm going to put Rydell in there. And the model is going to be a Speed Flex, you said, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And the size, medium.
Yep.
And the color is obviously yellow. And now hit add. And now at this point here, I'll get Rydell, Speed Flex, size mediums, yellow. I've got all 17 of them together. I'm going to hit finish here, okay? And now, there you go, Coach. Start scanning all 17 of them right there.
Okay, perfect.
As long that now these all I'm trusting, by the way, these are all the same year. Okay.
Well, for this purpose, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Beautiful. All right. So there you go. So there you go, Coach. Just scan all 17 of them, and when you're done, just basically hit add, and there you go. All 17 of those helmets now will be added to your inventory.
Got it. Okay. Perfect.
Okay. Mike, did you have any other questions, by the way? Sorry?
So I was just thinking, since Jeff is so multi-talented, and if he moves on to, let's say, hockey and soccer as a coach, and he's able to access a system and set up those different sports, right, so that he can track in the different sports?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So it's not just held
Yes,
to
sir.
just the football program. I know you have the global, and you can yeah. So that would be handy in case we get into other things.
Yes. Yeah. In fact, you can do that. You can do that as long as they've been basically placed in the global category. Okay. You can basically go right here to personnel right here and say you want to basically change that personnel or that person from one sport to another. Okay. Or you can just simply do it over here. You know, if I've got somebody in here, and I'll go back and bring up the coach again, okay, just to show you, you can basically add them to multiple sports here, as long as they're.
Oh, sorry. And then you can sort it by sports.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Exactly. Well, down here, I've only got the sport of demo down here, but you can see, for example, I go to change sports here. Here's all the different sports I have in the system, okay, in our demo system.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay. Yeah. And so that basically brings me to that. Are there any other questions either of you have at this point here?
I think that takes care of me.
Jessica, do you have any? Yep, sorry.
I think that takes care of me.
Okay. Jessica, do you have any questions? Have I missed anything?
Nope, you're doing great.
Perfect. All right, then last thing I want to go to, Coach, is exactly what we talked about here. I'm going to go to settings, okay? And in here, for example, okay, down here for settings is where basically I'll add sports if I have more sports to add to the system. Getting back to what you were saying, Mike, okay? Or users, in this case here, this is where we want to add users to the system, all right? So at this point here, I can add users in here. And so I'll tell you what I'm going to do, Coach, is I'm going to jump right into, at this point here, since we're done with this, okay, as far as the demo is concerned, the training exercise, I'm going to jump right in here with your system, if you will, okay? I'm going to log out and then log in with your system, and basically, let me go here. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to add yourself as a user.